So this is the last movie about headers and footers. We're going to insert a picture into the header and we're going to talk about some other issues. So that's where we'll begin, is we're going to insert a picture into a header. We're going to resize it a bit. We're going to convert it to a watermark. We're going to deal with a potential issue that has to do with scaling of the header content versus the document content. We can align the header and the footer with the margin. And there's a potential issue using an ampersand that I'll show you how to get around. So I'm in Excel in Book 1, and we're going to go to the page layout view to look at headers and footers one last time. And if you've seen the prior movies, you certainly know how to get there. But if you haven't seen them, you can go to the View tab to get to the page layout view. And we have workbook views, normal, page break preview, and page layout view. You can click the page layout view there, or you can go to the status bar and click the icon page layout. So we're going to insert a picture into the center quadrant in the header. So I'm going to select that quadrant, and when we get the design contextual tab option, we're going to go there and left click the picture command button in the header and footer elements group. I'm going to work offline because my picture is where yours should be, which is where you stored your practice files. And it's a picture of my logo. Why not? I mean, you'd probably use your logo too if you were doing this. So we're going to use my logo. I'm going to insert it. And it looks like I really haven't done anything regarding inserting a picture. I've inserted an ampersand and the word picture in brackets. But when I left click off of that, you can see we have the logo inserted into the document. Now there's a problem, potentially, depending upon what you're trying to do here, and that is that the logo is too large. We can do one of two things, or a combination of these two things. We can either expand the size of the header, or we can expand the size of the header and reduce the size of the logo. In order to do that, we're going to left click that quadrant that the picture is in, and then left click Format Picture, and with the lock aspect ratio box checked, we're going to change the size, because if you don't check that lock aspect ratio box, you can end up distorting the picture. With it checked, any change in the height or the width will cause a corresponding change in the height or the width in the same proportion for the changes that you're making. So it keeps the proportion of the picture consistent and it doesn't distort it. So we're going to take it down to about 25%, left clicking OK, and then clicking off of that. That's about the right size. Maybe the header could be a little larger. So we can convert a picture to a watermark. And since we have my logo in the header, we're going to use my logo to do that. So I'm going to left click the center quadrant again, left click Format Picture, and the first thing we're going to do is make it larger. And we're going to make it a fair amount larger, 153%. And then we're going to go to the Picture tab, where I, at the top, have some cropping options, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go down below the cropping option to the color drop-down and select Washout. Left clicking OK. We get this picture converted to a watermark. And if you want to move the watermark down into your worksheet, put the cursor at the front end of the picture, the left of the ampersand, and enter a few times. And you'll end up adding some rows above the picture so that the picture will actually be moved down into the worksheet. So there are two options that we're going to take a look at. By left-clicking the header that we just created, go to the Design tab, and in the Options group, there are two options, Scale with Document and Align Page with Margins. We're going to look at the Scale with Document that by default is checked. And what this does is usually what you want it to do, which is to scale the header consistent with the scaling of the document itself. So you don't end up with a header that's got a 28-point size and a document that's got a 10-point size font, for instance. And this is generally what you want, unless the different pages in your document are scaled differently. Because if that's the case, the header for each one of those pages is going to scale consistent with the way the content is scaled on that page. And your header from page to page won't be scaled consistently. Now, if that's what you want, leave that box checked. If it isn't what you want, if instead you want a consistent look to all your headers regardless of the scaling in each one of those pages, then clear this checkbox. The next option, Align Page with Margins, is also checked by default. This helps to align the header and the footer with the content as it is displayed within the context of the page. So if I clear this checkbox, you'll notice the margin on the left side isn't exactly aligned after clearing the checkbox. So generally what you want is to have the header and footer aligned with the margin. So that checkbox is checked by default. So the last issue is the ampersand. When I go to insert a header and footer, the ampersand acts as a connector. If I put one of these items in here, you see and page and pages. The ampersand acts as a connector. And when I click off of that, you don't see any ampersands. You see the content that was in between the ampersands. Well, what if I actually want to put an ampersand in the header? Because if I just put an ampersand in the header and click off of it, it disappears because it's a connector. Well, the way you would put an ampersand in the header is to put two ampersands in the header, because I'm connecting an ampersand, and when I click off of that, the ampersand is actually displayed. It's a small issue, but if you run into the situation where you actually want to display an ampersand in the header or footer, you can do that. You just need to put it in there twice. So that is the last of the header and footer movies. We looked at inserting a picture into the header, we resized the picture, and then we converted it to a watermark. And then we talked about an issue that has to do with scaling with the header. It's syncing up to the scaling of the documents or the pages. And we looked at a default setting to align the header with the margin. And then we talked about resolving an issue with an ampersand.